Hi, Armand Diaz here with you, hot on the trail of the May 20th, 2012 solar eclipse. Let's talk for just a second about eclipses, because it pays to understand the whole eclipse season. And it really is a season, because eclipses come in pairs. In this case, we have a solar eclipse in early Gemini, very early Gemini, and that's going to be followed in 2 weeks at the full moon with a lunar eclipse in the sign of Sagittarius. That's the way eclipses work. You have a solar eclipse followed by a lunar eclipse, or vice versa. You could have a lunar eclipse followed by a solar eclipse. And they're 2 weeks apart. Sometimes you can get as many as 3 eclipses in a row. You can have 2 lunar eclipses and a solar eclipse, something like that. But generally speaking, we have 2 eclipses at a time. And then at the other half of the year, because we need the sun to be in the same sign as the nodes of the moon, when the sun is in the same sign as one of the nodes, let's say in this case it's the sign of Gemini, we'll have 2 eclipses. And then a half a year later, when the sun is on the other side of the zodiac in the sign of Sagittarius, we'll again have 2 eclipses. So we have 2 eclipse seasons per year. Each season has 2 eclipses. Now, getting away from the astronomy, which is interesting, but we only have a few minutes here, let's get down to the heart of what an eclipse season is like. The entire time, the time from the first eclipse to the second eclipse, actually no, let's back up. It's really the time from the new or full moon before the first eclipse until the new or full moon after the second eclipse is a charge time, a time when things are sort of a little bit blown out of proportion. It's a time when we feel things more acutely. It's when we're more worried about things, we're more concerned about things, we're more enthusiastic about things. Everything becomes a little bit sharper, a little bit more of an issue. Everything is a little bit more charged up. It's like the voltage on life gets turned up a little bit. Everything gets like a little bit brighter. Everything glows a little bit more when we have an eclipse season. And that doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what sign you are. It doesn't matter if it's on your birthday that the eclipse falls or anything like that. We all kind of feel it. It doesn't matter where in the world the eclipse lands, which is actually pretty important as a thing, but it's not too important when it comes to the way we feel. The actual experience of eclipse season is pretty much the same for everybody, and it is really 6 weeks long. In this case, it began with the Scorpio full moon, and the Scorpio full moon in early May is a time that is usually a pretty difficult time in and of itself. It gets you already a little bit charged up. And now that we're at the eclipse, we're feeling that more acutely. The issues that were big 2 weeks ago, are now really kind of more powerful. But it's a solar eclipse that we're coming to. It's not a lunar eclipse, it's a solar eclipse. So the issues that were in your life 2 weeks ago that were powerful and grabbing your attention are more concentrated now. You care about them more, you're feeling the power more. But it's not necessarily externalized because it's a new moon. It's an implosion of energy. Solar eclipses are new moons, and although they are immensely powerful, they're an implosion of energy. For the next 2 weeks, with this implosion of energy, you feel this need for change. You feel the need for stability when there is none, or you feel the need for whatever, powerfully. But it's not necessarily a time when anything happens. Solar eclipses are usually more difficult from an experiential point of view. You feel very acutely what's going on. You feel the power very, very strongly, but it's not able to be externalized. It's a worry sometimes. It's an anxiety. It can be an anger. It can be a passion, a lust. It can be a lot of different things, but it's internal. And it takes really the 2 weeks to the lunar eclipse for that to be externalized. When it's externalized, it can be kind of a crazy thing. This is the time when we can really, start going off on people and really have, issues and things sort of come out there in our lives. But it's externalized, and in a way, that's always a little easier than when you pull the energy inwards. And then about 2 weeks after the eclipse season, when we get to, it'll be at that point the next new moon, that'll just be kind of, well, I don't really understand what the big deal was all about. Why was I just so incredibly freaked out by things? It didn't really have to be that way. I didn't have to make such a big issue out of it. That's the way we tend to experience the eclipse season. Things kind of get blown out of proportion for the 6 weeks of the eclipse season. And it's usually the issues in your life. It's usually overt issues in your life that get blown out of proportion. I bring that up because now that Neptune is in Pisces, we're seeing everything a little bit through the fisheye mirror of Pisces. We're seeing everything blown out of proportion. It's like a magnifying glass. You can see things really, really well, and everything gets bigger and maybe a little bit clearer. But what was a tiny little letter on the page all of a sudden becomes this huge thing in your field of vision. And when you're looking through a magnifying glass, that's all you see. You don't see the context. You don't see what's around it. You only see that one thing. It is really the thing that grabs your attention and distorts your attention. There's a little difference between the eclipse season distortion, which tends to take real issues and kind of blow them out of proportion, and Neptunian distortion, which can take real issues and fake issues, delusions and illusions, and blow them out of proportion. But anyway, you lay the two things on top of each other, and you've got quite a bit of potential for things to be sort of bent out of shape. It's especially true because this eclipse is square, or in a hard aspect to Neptune. So that Neptunian energy, which can channel things from all over the cosmos into our lives, and the eclipse energy, which tends to sort of blow things up or bring things inwards and distort them, those two things are both acting on us at this particular eclipse, which is otherwise in the calm and collected sign of Gemini. Now, Gemini is a sign of duality, but it's a sign of duality within a thing, within a person, within each of us, or sometimes within a relationship. But if it's within a relationship, then it's with the assumption that the relationship is the primary thing. It is the inner duality. It's not yet the Libra duality of me and you as two separate things in relationship. Gemini is the duality within each. For example, it could be the duality of thoughts and feelings that we might experience. It could be the duality of this feeling versus that feeling, sort of the feeling of being pulled in two different directions. The pictures that I've opened and I will close this video with are from alchemy, and they're really very appropriate because they represent the sun as the king and the moon as the queen, as a hermaphrodite being brought together, and it is in the process of creation of the two, but it's the two as one. It's that stage where the two separate are really not differentiated from each other yet. And that is very much what this eclipse is about, because it's the sun and the moon, and it's the sign of Gemini. It's this bringing together of, we can say, thoughts and feelings. We can say within each of us the masculine and the feminine, the ego and the soul. Whatever the duality, these things are at a point where they're blending, and yet they're not blending in an entirely harmonious way. And we kind of want to make a decision. We kind of want to make a choice. We kind of want to say, I want to do this thing or that thing. I want to be this or I want to be that. And this eclipse doesn't really give us much of an opportunity to do more than feel that need. We feel the need to make those changes, but it becomes a little bit more difficult to understand how we're going to go about that. And that's the strategy for this eclipse. Look and see between the two sides that you're pulled to, between the left and the right, between the masculine and the feminine, between the thoughts and the feelings, between whatever the conflict is. Look and see that these things are pulling in different directions, and understand that you're in the process, an internal process, of finding a way to harmonize them. Finding a way to harmonize the ego and with the deeper demands of the soul, the deeper demands of your real life, your real purpose. That's a big thing that's going on at this eclipse. But of course, it's a solar eclipse. The energy goes inwards. So I suppose it's a good strategy to just sleep on it.